Hafaday and good afternoon to you and the people of Guam. Today is March 14th, 2024. This public hearing will be conducted by myself, Senator William A. Parkinson, Chairman of the Committee of Fire, Agriculture, Power and Energy Utilities, Universal Health Care, and Universal Health Insurance. Notice of this hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and local media outlets on Thursday, March 7th, 2024. And the second notice was also shared to all senators and local media on Monday, March 11, 2024. Notice of this hearing was also posted and available on the Guam Legislature's website and the Governor of Guam Public Notice portal. We have two bills on our agenda today. We will first discuss Bill number 85-37, relative to extending family care and medical leave for miscarriages and stillbirths. Sponsored by myself, William A. Parkinson, and Amanda L. Shelton. Upon conclusion, we will take a short recess and come back for Bill number 202-37. I want to put on the record that Bill number 85-37 is not from my committee. I am hearing Bill 85-37 LS as the prime sponsor. So pursuant to Part B, Rule 6, Section 6.01 of the Standing Rules, if the committee to which the bill has been referred does not hold a public hearing within 120 calendar day timeline, the committee chairperson shall give a reason in writing for not holding a public hearing, and the prime sponsor of the bill may hold a public hearing following written notification to the committee chairperson, and the hearing shall be described by the prime sponsor. At this time, we will hear testimony on discussion on Bill number 85-37 LS, introduced by myself, William A. Parkinson, Amanda L. Shelton, an act to add a new subsection C5 to subsection 3603 of Article 6, Chapter 3, Title 22, Guam Code Annotated, relative to extending family care and medical leave for miscarriages and stillbirths. I would like to welcome my colleagues who are joining us today. Thank you, Senator Taitawi, for being here. Rules of conduct for this hearing. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that your name and title for record-keeping purposes are said. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal infringement as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Individuals who fail to abide by these rules will be restricted from participating and will be escorted and removed from the room. We will now proceed with discussion on Bill number 85-37 LS, which I'll do by my opening remark as prime sponsor. So, Bill 85-37 LS seeks to extend family and medical leave for miscarriages and stillbirths. Currently, family and medical leave currently allow for the leave for the following reasons. Leave for reasons of the birth of a child of the employee or the placement of a child with an employee in connection with the adoption or foster care of the child by the employee. Leave to care for a parent, spouse, or child of an employee, or a parent or child of the spouse of an employee who has serious health conditions. 3, leave because of an employee's own serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform the functions of the position of that employee, except for leave taken for disability on account of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. Or 4, leave for reason of the death of the family of the employee. This bill adds in a 5th reason for leave under this section, allowing employees to take leave for reason or occurrence of a miscarriage or stillbirth by the employee or family member of the employee. The Family and Medical Leave section of Guam law ensures that an employee has the right to take work leave for any of the above reasons and for good reason. All of the above reasons are extenuating circumstances that an employee may face in their life which can take a physical, mental, and emotional toll on the employee. I am not a woman. I will never, ever understand the physical, mental, and emotional pain of what a woman goes through when she has a miscarriage experience. or a stillbirth. But I am a husband, and I am soon to be father to a girl. My wife, Camille, she had multiple miscarriages on this path. And I cannot put into words the pain that you go through during that time. But we were fortunate enough that Cam wasn't working at the time and that I was able to support her through it. But I know not everyone is in that position. Not everyone works in a place that would willingly give an ample amount of leave for those who have experienced a miscarriage or stillbirth. I've heard many stories of women who have had to return to work in as little as a few days after their miscarriage. Under the Family and Medical Leave Act, eligible employees are entitled to 12 weeks of leave. Bill 85-37 protects an employee's right to leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act, and it ensures that they have the proper time away to heal, not just physically, but emotionally. See, some wounds take longer than others to heal, and some go deeper than skin deep. And this bill recognizes and acknowledges that. Additionally, the bill also allows eligible employees to take leave if a family member experiences a miscarriage or stillbirth. Miscarriages and stillbirths are a very tragic experience that one should never have to go through alone. And with this provision, we ensure that employees can be with their families during such trying times. March is Women's Month. So happy Women's Month to my wife Camille, my mother, my sister, and to every woman out there. I have always been an advocate for women's rights, and I will continue to be one. And so again, happy Women's Month to you all. And with that, I'd like to thank my co-sponsor, Senator Amanda Shelton, for co-sponsoring this measure with me, and I look forward to the discussion on the bill today. And also at this time, I'd like to recognize my fellow senator, Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you for joining us today. So, as I say, at this time, I'm now opening up the floor to public testimony. So if you could please just say your name and your title and go ahead and let us have it.
Buenas and happy day, Mr. Chair, and Sujus Masi for giving us this opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Regine Bisco Lee, and I'm here as the Secretary of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce, and I'll provide testimony on behalf of the GWCC at this time. This testimony has also been submitted to your office, as well as the Chair of the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture. And happy Women's History Month. Hafide, members of the 37th Guam Legislature, Siduos Maasi for this opportunity to provide written testimony on proposed Bill 85-37. The vision of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce is that Guam will be an island community whose economy is driven and influenced by the equal participation of women in business. One of our key objectives is to influence legislative policies on issues facing women in business and the workplace. GWCC recognizes that while current family care and medical leave covers situations such as the birth of a child, leave to care for a parent, leave for serious health conditions, and leave for reason of death in the family, the passage of Bill 85-37 would also allow for family care and medical leave for stillbirths and miscarriages. The Chamber further acknowledges that miscarriages are devastating and at the same time extremely common. It is important that employees who experience miscarriage or stillbirth be allowed an ample amount of time to leave to heal both physically and emotionally. We thank Senators William Parkinson and Amanda Shelton for the introduction of Bill 85-37 and support this effort to close a gap in existing policy, ensuring employment protections for those who experience miscarriages or stillbirths. The Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce supports Bill 85-37 as this policy can formalize existing practices and ensure there's consistency when staff members and employees change. GWCC supports and encourages education and discourse around these important issues affecting working families and women in business. We look forward to making miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, and stillbirth less taboo and ensuring the overall well-being of the people of Guam. Siduos Maasi, this is signed by Samantha Taitano, the president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce, and that is a testimony on the GWCC side. And we've submitted it to you as well, Senator. Now I'd like to kind of take off my GWCC hat and just provide testimony, oral testimony as a private citizen. I really didn't think that I would have an opportunity to come here today to deliver this testimony, but I was able to make some changes in my schedule, so I'm happy that I'm here as a private citizen. And I just really want to thank you, Senator Parkinson, for introducing this legislation. It's very personal to me. I have experienced a loss in the past, and it was a devastating loss. And so I offer my condolences to you and to Cam and your family. It's a very difficult thing to endure and to survive. In my situation, this was many, many years ago, so I'm actually at the point where I can even speak about it publicly. It took about 5 years after my loss to even be able to talk about it without completely breaking down. And I'm a very strong person. I couldn't even speak about it. It was so difficult. It took me about a week to recover, and every patient is different. And it just was a very, very dark time for me and my family. Thankfully, I had access to medical care. I had access to grief counseling, which I took full advantage of, and I'm grateful to my healthcare providers for helping me through that difficult time. And also, I had the wonderful opportunity to speak to others who have been in similar situations. And it really opened my eyes to just seeing how many women in our community have experienced this kind of loss. And again, everybody is different. There are some women who are able to go right back to work afterwards, and then there are others who really, it just really depends. In my situation, I was already past the first trimester. We had already been making plans and letting family members know, so that was very difficult. But so many of my own family members, after this happened, confided in me that it had happened to them too. Some just a few years prior, some decades ago, and they're still harboring this pain and moving forward with it. But just knowing that I was now part of this community of people who've experienced it, and the more that I talk about it, the more that I realize that there's so many other women out there who've had that similar experience. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to provide my testimony today. I appreciate the introduction of this bill to kind of enshrine into law these protections for working families, and I'm here if you have any questions. Siduos Masi.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to recognize my colleague, Senator Sabrina Perez. Thank you for joining us today. And now I'd like to recognize you, ma'am. Go ahead and please introduce yourself and your name and title.
Hafa-day Senator Parkinson and committee members. My name is Jane Flores. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Women's Affairs for the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration. And this testimony is submitted on behalf of the Bureau of Women's Affairs and the administration. The Bureau of Women's Affairs respectfully submits the following testimony in support of Bill 8537 relative to extending family care and medical leave for miscarriages and stillbirths. We thank Senators Parkinson and Shelton for authoring this amendment to the Guam Family and Medical Leave Act. This amendment allows leave for the reason of occurrence of a miscarriage or stillbirth by the employee or family member of the employee. The Guam Family and Medical Leave Act is actually more generous for employees than the federal FMLA, as it covers employers with 20 or more employees whereas the federal FMLA covers employers with 25 employees or more. And as mentioned, the Guam FMLA currently allows for up to 12 weeks of leave within a 12-month period for the birth, adoption, or placement in foster care of a child with the family or the employee, leave for a parent, or to leave to care for a parent, spouse, or child of an employee, or the spouse of an employee with a serious health condition, leave because of your own serious health condition, or leave for a death of the family member or the employee. BWA feels that including these two very serious medical events, miscarriage and stillbirth, is warranted. One might think the current law's listing of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions would cover miscarriage or stillbirth. One might also expect that every employer would consider these two heart-wrenching medical scenarios as reason to provide a woman or a person with a uterus a reasonable amount of time to mourn and heal from what can be a devastating loss, and which, speaking from personal experience, can also result in serious medical issues for the mother. Unfortunately, such is not always the case. We realize that the FMLA requirement of a total of 12 weeks of leave in a 12-month period could pose a serious burden on the employer. However, the current law does take that into consideration by requiring that, if at all possible, the employee provide 30 days' notice and make leave arrangements in consideration of the employer's operation. With respect to a miscarriage or a stillbirth, this is not usually possible. However, such an unexpected event does warrant consideration of the employer, as both scenarios, as I previously mentioned, can be devastating to the patient and her family. I would also like to add that statistics do show that 1 in 5 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. That is the average statistic. Therefore, the Bureau of Women's Affairs fully supports Bill 8537, and again thanks Senators Parkinson and Shelton for their effort to help persons who have experienced either of these two tragic medical events be afforded time to heal. Si Jus Masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your testimony. At this time, I would like to open the floor to my colleagues to ask questions if they have any. Senator Teitigwe, do you have any questions or comments, ma'am?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for those who testifying.
Thank you, Senator Teitigwe. Senator Brown, do you have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I think we do need to define family. It indicates that the employee who's affected by miscarriage or a stillbirth would have the ability to take leave, but then it says, or family member of the employee. I think we would need to define that, because that's pretty open-ended. I don't think anyone can argue the need for this. I'm going to note, though, I have to say it's, I can't help myself, because it's ironic that we would say this at this point, but yet we won't protect babies before they're born. This is the irony of this, and the emotions that are relayed. I think anyone who's been through childbirth can recognize that, because you worry from the moment you're aware that you're pregnant, are you going to safely be able to bring a child into the world? Because there's so many challenges that could happen. You always wonder if you're eating right, if you're doing the right thing, if you're going to do in any way anything you do or think is going to harm the child that you're carrying, that you hope will be born safe and have 10 fingers and 10 toes and have a promising future ahead of them. So I have no argument against this legislation. I just think we need to define that, and I just have to throw it out there, because I find it ironic that we so easily can look at taking a life of an infant or a baby before they're born, and yet we look at it differently the moment they are born. Up until then, they have to fight for their life. So I just want to state that for the record, Mr. Chair. I have no questions, and I have no further comments at this time.
Thank you, Senator Brown, and I take your point about defining that language, and I absolutely will work with you on that to get that better hammered out. Thank you. Senator Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Senator Lee and Jane Flores, Director Flores, for your testimony. I do appreciate this concept of tailoring the FMLA to Guam's needs, so thank you for those suggestions. And so my condolences to Senator Lee and for your loss, as well as Chair, for your loss and your family. In regards to, so I know the FMLA basically allows for leave if an employee has worked for 12 months or has provided 1,000 hours of service. Perhaps this is a question for Department of Labor. Maybe is there a way to expand it in the case, miscarriages, there's no, it happens, right? So we don't know, it might happen before this threshold period. And maybe we can weigh in from Department of Labor on other ways to provide these, coverage for the FMLA. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be changed congressionally or that could be done here locally. Do you know anything about that?
I would have to consult with the Department of Labor for that. I do know that our FMLA is fairly specific with regard to 20 or more employees, and the employee has to have worked 1,000 hours within a 12-month period.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's a question I could bring up to Department of Labor. And I appreciate the bill and look forward to more input. Yeah. Yes, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Jane. I'm not sure about what the Department of Labor would say about this, but in terms of, just personally as a business owner, I would feel like that when we provide policies like this, it gives people permission to excuse. So even if, for example, if one of my employees didn't fall within the certain number of hours or that threshold, didn't meet that threshold, if this law is on the books, it would help employers to kind of lean in that direction.
I see, yeah, true.
It gives them license to kind of do what everybody that's testified feels is the right thing.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you for that response. I have no further questions, and I do want to support, we did, in our committee, was able to push out the Pregnancy Care Act, and so we definitely have some expertise in looking at this closer and improving it. So, and I understand that Department of Labor is also, they've finalized, I believe, the regulations for that law, and we look forward to seeing that in the near future. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Senator. And you're right. There is places to improve it. Maybe we could have a discussion about doing a markup session on some of these bills. Technical changes that don't change the substantive nature of it. Because I think a lot of these ideas that we're getting through are positive ones. Just gotta mark our T's and dot our I's a little bit. At this time, I'd like to recognize Senator Dwayne San-Nicolas and Senator Roy Kanata. Thank you both for joining us today. Senator Dwayne, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the measure. It's always been my thing how society treats its people and our ladies. I think it's very important that they allow time to heal, and this is a very good measure, and I support it. And thank you, Ms. Senator and Ms. Flores, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Kanata, do you have any questions or comments, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the body for joining us this morning. Appreciate your presence here, Senator Lee. Welcome home. I definitely will be looking into this legislation, and will support the initiatives moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Kanata. Thank you, Senator Lee. Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony here today. It's very brave of you to share that with us. I know for myself, as a husband looking in, seeing the anguish that it put on my own family, I couldn't help but be struck by a feeling of, helplessness, just not being able to do anything. But it really gave me comfort when my wife told me that it was enough that I was just there for her. And so this legislation is an effort for me to extend that ability, not just for myself, but for everybody else on the island, to be able to be there for their loved ones and to have the space of their home and the comfort of their family and their closest people with them to get through this difficult time. And so while this may have started as an exercise in projecting my own grief and my own healing, at least now I actually see steps to really do good for someone besides myself. And so whatever technical corrections we got to make to get this through all the way, let's make them. And thank you so much, ladies, for your testimony. I obviously support this measure, and happy Women's Month. Let's continue to get it done for them. And so if there are no further questions or comments, this concludes our discussions on Bill number 85-37 LS. My office will continue to accept written testimony on today's hearing within 5 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 905 of the DNA Building in Nagotnia. You may also send your written testimony to my office via email at senatorparkinson@guamlegislature.org. Thank you for all your participation. We will take a short recess and come back for the next item on our agenda. That is Bill number 202-37 COR. At this time, we are in recess. Hafa and good afternoon. We are back from recess. This public hearing is called back to order, and the time is now 2:37. Notice that this hearing was disseminated by email to all senators and local media outlets on Thursday, March 7, 2024. And the second notice was also shared to all senators and local media on Monday, March 11, 2024. Notice of this hearing was also posted and available on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal. The Committee on Fire, Agriculture, Power and Energy Utilities, Public Transit, Unemployment Insurance, and Universal Health Insurance will now accept testimony and discussion on Bill Number 202-37 COR, introduced by Tello T. Taitigui, Sabina Flores Perez, Joanne Brown, Chris Barnett, Frank Bloss Jr. An act to repeal the amendment to subsection 58109 and 58110 and the new Chapter 58 be added to Division 3 of Title 10 Guam Code annotated as an act by Public Law 37-47 in their entirety. Public 37-47 is the legalization and regulation of the use of consumer-grade fireworks. I would like to thank my colleagues who are joining us today. To my left, I have Senator Joanne Brown and Senator Tello Taitigui. To my right, I have Senator Sabina Perez, Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas, and Senator Roy Canazza. Thank you all for joining us today. We will now proceed with discussion on Bill Number 202-37 COR, which will allow the Pride sponsor to give her opening remarks. Senator Taitigui, the floor is now yours.
Sujus Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for holding the public hearing. And this bill is Bill 202-37, an act to repeal the amendment to 58109 and 58110 and the new Chapter 58B added to Division 3 of Title 10 Guam Code annotated as enhanced by Public Law 37-47 in their entirety. And it's introduced by myself, and I'm very proud that the co-authors of this legislation are people I very well respected and individuals who do their homework. And those are Senator Perez, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Chris Duenas, and Senator Frank Bloss, who've been very adamant on this legislation and knows the effects and harms that legalizing fireworks can cause. I'm hoping that I can get other senators to agree as well and realize that what was supposed to happen after Public Law 37-47 became law, the reality was that no other law came after to address some of the issues. But again, Mr. Chair, keeping to your word, I'm very grateful, Senator Parkinson, for holding this public hearing, and many thanks as well to all those that are here to testify. I'd like to thank first for the firemen, the fine men of the fire department that are here today, as well as former Chief of Police and now Director of Department of Correction, Fred Perdallo, thank you, and of course Frank Sanchez, who is in the business of fireworks. And I'd also like to recognize that this Fire Service Recognition, it's Fire Service Recognition Week, and it's fitting that we celebrate and honor those who stand ready to keep us safe, night and day. So congratulations for Fire Week, Recognition Week. On November 10th, 2023, Guam became less safe. This is the date that Public Law 37-47 became law. This law legalizes the sale and use of fireworks on Guam. I truly believe in protecting our community and the safety and well-being of those who also protect us, the Fire Department, DOC, Guam Police Department, Department of Agriculture. I believe it's important that we protect them as well as our community. Although I am opposed to the legalization of fireworks, I attempted to amend the fireworks bill during legislative session in order to place safety measures into the bill. I had 6 amendments ready, but only one of them passed before debate on the bill was abruptly ended. And I think that one amendment was a few people were sleeping on the floor had it got through, luckily. Apparently, some of my colleagues are fine with the unrestricted sale and use of fireworks without any safety measures. Because of this, I introduced Bill number 202 shortly after the governor signed the fireworks bill into law. Here's some of what the governor had to say regarding the bill she signed. Quote, "Without question, we can anticipate that the introduction of this low-level explosive will periodically cause accidents," unquote. Yet, she signed it into law. Here's a comment by the fireworks bill author after his bill became law. Quote, "I am just as concerned as the governor when it comes to the uses of consumer fireworks by the community," he said. "During my November 9th meeting with her, I informed the island's Magahaga that I am working on a new bill that makes it safer for the use of consumer fireworks, penalties, as well as the rules and regulations recommended by the Guam Fire Department for the importation and distribution of fireworks," unquote. That was dated November 11th, 2023. I have not seen a bill yet. If the governor signed the fireworks bill based on assurance that the law will be amended to include safety measures, then it appears that someone acted in bad faith. My concern over fireworks revolve around safety. There's much I can say about it but when you hear what I have to say, well, it's just so frustrating at this point. But there's much I can say about it, but we're here to hear what you have to say. I remember the roundtable hearing that we had on May 8th, 2023. And I remember some of the comments that were made. One of them was from Department of Agriculture, who's not here today. It was unfortunate she's not here, who opposed the fireworks bill. She talked about the enforcement of not having it outstaffed at the Department of Department of Agriculture, where she says that wildfire life training is desperately needed. However, they're low on funding. And they definitely acknowledge the assistance of the fire department, and that they really need at least 20 new firemen to address what they have reported to us, that 4.5% of the island burns a year. That's 8,000 acres. And regardless of the miscommunication information, humans are the #1 cause of ignition of these fires. Humans. It was also mentioned during that roundtable that there are no burn units. I asked the Department of Public Health and Social Services, "Do you know of any burn units on this island?" And they said none. I asked the fire department, "Do you know of any burn units on this island?" And they said none. What are we doing here? Talk about the cart before the horse, or carabao. PPE, one outfit for 7 firefighters to be used was reported during that meeting as well. It's just so frustrating, and I know that many of the people on this island see the same thing I see, as well as my co-sponsors, that this is dangerous and there is no safety measures in place. And regardless of what people say, fireworks right now are legal 24/7. So I appreciate the comments that you'll make today, whether for or against it, But at least let's educate the public and let them know what they're in for. Because it may happen to one of their family members that they get injured. And then it's too late. Before I turn it over, I just wanted to, and then you can make comments. Anybody who's sitting testifying today can make comments to this. There was an article that came out February 21st, 2024 from the Guam Daily Post. And in that article, it talks about Joseph Anthony Blas, whose case was unsealed. He was charged with makeshift fireworks, but using low-grade fireworks. So it's stated here, and he was sentenced, thank goodness. It says here, quote, Blas said it was made from a glass salt shaker type and explosive powder from other fireworks, the court document stated. Can you imagine that? You can take these low-grade fireworks, firecrackers, put it all together and build a bomb. Luckily, nobody got hurt. Blas further stated that sometime in December 2021, Blas, the driver, and other individuals had extra fireworks. They took apart and built two similar devices because they wanted a larger noisemaker for the New Year's celebration. Also, in the Post, dated January 2nd, 2024, 8 treated Monday in Jigo after improvised fireworks injuries. Same thing in the Pacific Daily News, talked about 8 injured from use of fireworks, explosives. These are just some of the comments that I would like to make, but again, I'm very interested in to hear what you have to say, and hopefully the colleagues that are not here today will be able to review this public hearing and make a very sound decision for the safety and well-being of our community, and not the pocket of somebody else, the pocketbook of somebody else. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Taidigui. At this time, I would like to open up the floor to our panelists to give testimony. Let's start here with the far right. Go ahead, sir. Could you please state your name and the title, and go ahead and give your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Senator Parkinson. My name is Fred E. Berdali, Jr. I'm the current Director of the Department of Corrections. Good afternoon, Senator Joanne Brown. Good afternoon, Senator Telo Taidigui. Good afternoon, Senator Sabina Perez, Senator Joaquin Nicholas, and Senator Roy Kinata. I have some written testimony here that I was presenting to Senator Taidigui, the primary sponsor of the bill. This testimony is for Bill number 20237, corrected, an act to repeal 58109, 58110, and the new Chapter 58B added to Division 3 of Title 10 Guam Code annotated as enacted by Public Law 3747, their entirety. Buenas and Hafide, I'm providing this testimony in reference to this legislation. My testimony will be presented for information purposes. It is known through previous public hearings involving the legalization of consumer fireworks that I have provided testimony about the risk factors associated with the importation and use of consumer fireworks for Guam. I'm present for today's public hearing to place emphasis on the importance of having safety regulations in place and reasonable time limits on the use of consumer fireworks, with the observations made in previous public hearings that there are individuals who want to enjoy and have fun with consumer fireworks. The Guam Fire Department, and most importantly, similar to other jurisdictions, have the mission of public safety, and I respect the fact that Governor Leon Guerrero has placed emphasis that the Guam Fire Department must have these safety regulations in place before any legal authorized sale of consumer fireworks is permitted. The Guam Fire Department have been given the work of establishing the safety regulations and permit process in place and the enforcement of consumer fireworks regulations. What is necessary, I might add, is that the Guam Fire Department needs the assistance of the Guam Police Department, Homeland Security, and Office of the Attorney General Consumer Protection in the event those consumer fireworks products are defective or weaponized. Weaponized consumer fireworks were in fact reported through the FBI at the Boston Marathon bombings years ago. And I just want to say, it's not here in my written testimony, that I happened to be a student at the Naval Postgraduate School, Center of Homeland Security, Defense, and Security Studies at the time. We were given the alert process of that Boston Marathon bombing with consumer-grade fireworks that were used as an improvised explosive device. The importation of consumer fireworks into our island has significant public safety implications that we all need to be attentive of. When there are no safety regulations in place, and those agencies within public safety and Homeland Security are not provided the resources needed to deter exploitation and gaps that would ensure the public safety, this increases the risk and harm to our community. Thank you. And I wait for questions from this committee.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. At this time, I would like to recognize the Guam Fire Department. Please say your names and title, and feel free to give your testimony when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Senator Parkinson, Mr. Chair, and senators of the 37th Guam Legislature. My name is Joey Manabusan. I'm the Assistant Fire Chief of the Guam Fire Department, and I'm here to represent Deputy Fire Chief and Acting Fire Chief Joey St. Nicholas, who was unable to make it today. To my right is Chief Ron Castro. He is the Acting Bureau Chief of the Fire Prevention Bureau. And here's our testimony. Hafaday 37th Guam Legislature, thank you for this opportunity to present testimony on the issue of fireworks. This testimony is neither in support of nor in opposition to Bill 9-37, an act to amend subsection 58-109 and subsection 58-110 of Chapter 58 and adding a new Chapter 58B to Title 10, Division 3, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the legalization and regulation of the use of consumer-grade fireworks. We acknowledge that fireworks are a staple in holiday festivities and celebrations in Guam and nationwide. Because of their vibrant colors and stunning displays, many enjoy the entertainment and joy they bring to mark special occasions. But with the pros also comes the cons. According to a report by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, there were 9 fatalities and an estimated 11,500 injured in incidents involving fireworks in 2021. According to the National Fire Protection Association, fireworks started an estimated 19,500 fires in fireworks in 2021. According to the National Fire Protection Association, fireworks started an estimated 19,500 fires in 2018, including 1,900 structure fires, 500 vehicle fires, and 17,100 outside and other fires. Like Guam, Massachusetts is the only state that bans the sale of all consumer-grade fireworks, only allowing for professional displays. In 16 other states, the sale of non-aerial and non-explosive safe and sane is allowed. However, most have varied licensing, age, and operating requirements. Submitted with this testimony, which was provided to the legislature, is a position statement by the International Association of Fire Chiefs that is adamantly against the importation, sale, and use of all consumer-grade fireworks. Should Bill 9-37 pass, extensive work must be conducted to facilitate the sale and use of these fireworks on island. The Guam Fire Department will require additional funding to conduct focused inspections on vendor storage locations, the frequent inspection of imported fireworks, and the enforcement of fines associated with illegal importation and/or usage. Vendors must also be amenable to the possibility of retrofitting storage areas to include sprinkler systems, along with the implementation of other requirements, such as fees for the application of these measures. The Guam Fire Department will enforce the laws passed by the legislature and signed by the Governor of Guam. However, we must be afforded an opportunity to research and implement fees, fines, and a comprehensive program to regulate the sale and use of consumer-grade fireworks. The Guam Fire Department is focused on life safety and the protection of property. Therefore, we must also plan for the inevitable injuries and possible fires, both wildland and structural, caused by the negligent use of improper discharge of fireworks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. At this time, I'd like to recognize you, sir. Could you please give your name and your position and go ahead and give your testimony?
Good afternoon, honorable senators. My name is Jeffrey Sanchez, and I am the owner of Showpro Pyrotechnics. We are currently the only licensed legal fireworks providers, importers for the island of Guam, and I'm here to state my opposition to, well, my support of the bill currently, but the opposition to the past legalizing of the fireworks. Now, last time I was here, I had a whole written testimony which is on the record, so I don't need to go over that again. However, I do want to say that since the time the bill has been passed to recently, there's been much confusion in the community about this whole fireworks legalization. I've gotten calls about from people wanting to buy stuff to be able to shoot stuff, and I'm still in the position of no, even if it does become legal and all of the things are passed and I'm already set to sell it, I have the storage and the insurance, I will not. I will not sell consumer fireworks to a single person because I believe, and I still believe, that it is very dangerous. And even with the restrictions set in place about height, about how much explosive content each firework can have, like it was previously stated, when you stockpile and you get a whole bunch of small fireworks, you cut them up, open them up, put them together, you can make bombs, and that's how lives have been lost. And so I believe a little bit of common sense has to come into play. It's only going to cause more problems for us. For example, with our hospital situation, I mean, do we really need to send more people to the hospital that we can't even get situated? As well as, do we need to spend more money on more personnel for the fire department? Do we need to give them more work, to try to uphold the laws that, are going to be passed with this, to enforce, for example, which I believe can't be enforced because right now, or up until a few months ago, the fireworks were illegal for anybody else's possession and consumer, but there were fireworks being shot weekly on the island, and I think that's no surprise for us. And sometimes, I get hired to do a legal display, and a few miles away, we could see that fireworks are being shot in the same weekend, on the same night. So enforcement, I believe, is going to be a problem, is going to be an issue, is not going to happen, and I think that this is going to get out of hand before it becomes any good. And unfortunately, the good senator isn't here today, but last time I was told, what you guys enact or can be undone in the future if you guys want to. Well, I just want to say that a loss of life cannot be undone. That's just the bottom line. And when you're talking about fire, you're talking about danger. So I've been doing this for years. I've gotten training in different parts of the world to be able to do this. Every time we put on a display, my staff and I put our lives at risk so everybody else can have a safe and enjoyable experience with fireworks. And I welcome anybody to start the business, to put on a safe, fireworks display. I'm not looking to be exclusive at all, but there are measures and there are steps and there is lots of training and respect that you have to have for this product. And I don't think that, our people are ready for it, frankly. That's my testimony today. Thank you for hearing me, and that's what I have.
Thank you so much for your testimony, sir. Now at this time, I will open up the floor to my colleagues to ask some questions if they have any. Senator Heidegger, do you have any questions? I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do. First, again, thank you so much for testifying. And I too, been getting calls, Mr. Sanchez, the comment you made regarding, it's kind of confusing, this bill that was passed. The way I see the bill as it's passed, and correct me, Chief Manabusan, if I'm wrong on this, but if somebody was firing some firecrackers on the side of the street, firing them up and shooting them off, would he be breaking the law? He or she be breaking the law?
Today, they would be breaking the law because how did they obtain those fireworks in the scenario you're mentioning?
Okay, but what if they say he found it on the side of the road or that somebody just gave it to him? Would he still be arrested?
Ma'am, they can be charged with breaking the law, but that'll be up to the court to decide whether they're guilty of breaking the law, but they're illegally obtaining fireworks. So they can be charged with that. So after they're brought to court, then the court will decide whether they're breaking the law or not.
Okay. Because the way I see it is that if you sell fireworks or if you bring them in from off island, you're breaking the law. But what happens if somebody has them in their possession that they say they found on the side of the street and blowing them up? They're not breaking the law. And by the way, it doesn't matter what time because it's, of course, 24/7, so that rules out in court.
Well, let me just give a similar situation.
Okay.
Just because somebody finds a gun on the side of the street, fully loaded, does not entitle them to start shooting that gun.
Because he has to have a license in order to shoot it, correct? A permit?
And you just can't go shooting a gun anywhere you want.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, the gun, it could be stolen or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
So I'm just trying to give you a comparison, so that's how it would be looked at.
But there are laws in place. There are rules and regulations that govern a gun, the possession of a handgun or a rifle or anything. There are rules. Unfortunately, there is none for fireworks.
We do have rules and we have laws that govern fireworks. However, the new rules and regulations have not been published. So until that is published, we still have to follow the old rules.
Okay. Chief Berdallo, any comments on this?
I think the fire department, they're accurate in the legal assessment, because we, police department, and, police officers too, as a former police officer encountering an individual, the question is, how did you get that? They say because of the current law, although it legalizes consumer fireworks, there was also conditions that the fire department was given instructions by the governor, and I think it was clearly stated that no one would be allowed to sell consumer fireworks unless they go through the regulations of what the fire department comes up with, the permit process. So the question would be for the one at the ground level, the police officers and the fire department officers, the question their legal service person, hey, what do we do? I mean, it would most likely be confiscated, but then it would be with the Office of the Attorney General into the court to say, how do we interpret right now enforcement of this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, if you read the law, there is nothing in there stating that someone can just light up a firework. There's only distribution and sell in that law. And I think, legal interpretation, anybody, you try to arrest somebody and waste the time of our police officer arresting someone, they're going to get away with it because that's all they have to say is they found it on the side of the road. And there's nothing making it illegal to fire it off in the law. So maybe both because you work at DOC and fire department, please read the law, the public law that just passed. And you'll see in there is nothing. And if you need legal interpretation of the law, If you don't have an attorney, I'm glad, I'm happy to allow our attorney here, but the Attorney General will be very good at explaining it. He is the Office of,
And ma'am, in
Law.
our fire code, there is a stipulation that indicates in the absence of a provision, a nationally recognized standard can be used. So the national recognized standards and practices
Right.
will come into play.
right. But
And
it's
in
not
the-
absent,
and
though,
in-
Chief. It's not absent. There's a law that passed
Yes,
that allowed it.
but-
It made it legal.
But for the provisions of discharge of fireworks, we would use a nationally recognized standard pending our standards to be adopted. We will do our best to ensure that the safety of our community.
I know you will. You guys have been, and you're overworked, and you're understaffed, and this just made it even more on your plate to have to address and put. You know, it's people don't realize that the fire department, even though they go to a fire, they've been alerted to a fire, it's called downtime, rest time, because there's not enough officers, firefighters out there. That downtime, rest time is almost non-existent. They have to keep going and going. And this can cause mistakes being made, exhaustion alone. And here we're passing on legislation like this. We're putting the fire department in more harm's way than we've ever done before. I recommend that you seek legal advice from the Attorney General with regards to, or not legal advice, but his interpretation and opinion of what was just passed. Okay, if you can, because I know I haven't gotten a copy yet, and I know he's been very busy at this point. So, you know, I'll try and hopefully speed up the process and get it and submit it to you. I think I'll do it myself. Yeah.
We will ensure that Chief St. Nicholas gets that message.
Okay, and I'll do it to myself.
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez, thank you again for your testimony. You mentioned that you have no plans on selling fireworks to anybody who comes up and wants to buy some, even if it is legal. I do want to recognize that I think it was Tom Tatauto of the fire department mentioned in the round table how lucrative it is, very lucrative. And then I spoke to some of the fire department individuals in CNMI. That was the first thing they told me. This is a moneymaker, big time moneymaker. And they're having major issues in Saipan right now. So thank you for bringing that up. I do want to read into the record, too, from the fire chief on May 8th, 2023, during the round table. He recognizes the senators were there, and he says, and quote, "Thank you for having us here, and everybody else has joined us here at the roundtable discussion. I am Fire Chief Joey St. Nicholas, firefighter for 28 years, and the actual Deputy Fire Chief of the Guam Fire Department. I did bring along with me my team, and they'll each introduce themselves, but these are our subject matter experts within the Guam Fire Department with all the many years of experience in the code enforcement credentials of fire officers, chief fire officers that can provide some professional discussion about the particular subject. I will say overall, though as the fire department and the fire service as a whole, we are also from a safety aspect and the resources needed to respond fire services across the nation to include us were on board. We are very hesitant to support this effort, right? And particularly for the safety standpoint, right? Now that being said, there are already over 46 states that have authorized and legalized fireworks, and with the fire department's input for these particular states and countries, and if we were going to do this for the island of Guam and its people, we just want to be there as your steward of the fire service to make sure that we do it right, make sure that it fits Guam, and if we can maybe slow it down just a little bit and do this incrementally as we implemented this law so that we can truly determine numbers and stats and whether it's the right thing for our island over time. So with that said, that's our general statement and general position. But again, we are here to not impede the process. We want you to help support the process and make it right for our island and make it fit for our department. So thank you very much for having us here. That's verbatim from the May 8, 2023. So Chief Matabusin, have you seen anything slowing it down based on the bill that was passed, going right into it? Just a little bit and do it incrementally. Have you seen that happen?
At this time, the Fire Prevention Bureau is working on rules and regulations, and it is taking some time, but the suspense date is, Chief, what did you say, by June? At least by June, we should have some kind of working rules and regulations.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Medallo, for providing your testimony. It's a bit different from what you testified the last time on a bill that became public law, that you were completely opposed to it. And I do understand your position, as well as all the department agencies that fall under the governor's office, even though she signs a bill into law knowingly that this could harm our community and that it did not have all the rules and regulations that were clearly stated in every testimony roundtable that needed to be put into the bill, and the bill never had any of that. But I do understand who you work for and who you have to have your alliance to at this point. But I have to tell you, I'm thank you for the courage of being here today to say as much as you can say without getting in trouble. But I think it's clear for the public to realize that this is not good. The bill that was passed was not good, and that repealing it is the best option. So again, I thank you and looking forward to the comments.
Thank you, Senator Teitigui. Senator Brown, do you have any questions or comments for this panel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you that are here today to provide your testimony. You know, I think we can all appreciate the mesmerizing presence of fireworks, and certainly, you know, we look forward to special holidays and July 4th and July 21st on Guam so that we can see these beautiful fireworks in the sky. I mean, it's like diamonds in the sky. They're beautiful. And I've had the opportunity back in the mainland. I mean, when you go cross country, my gosh, fireworks are almost available everywhere for you to buy. And I've had the opportunity with my Brown and Gary cousins in the mountains of Tennessee on July 4th to experience a good old American Independence Day. You know, you barbecue your hamburgers and your hot dogs, and you play with your sparklers. And it's quite an experience. At the other end, it's how do we address the safety issue? And certainly I appreciate the position of Senator Teitigui. I mean, she's the mother of a firefighter, so I'm sure that's something she's conscientious of every time she talks about this issue, is wanting to address the safety. And I think we certainly had things a little backwards. We had the law passed, but we didn't have the regulations in place to address. How do we manage, how do we store, how do we maintain, how do we address proper disposal? I mean, even your batteries that you put in your flashlight, if you let it sit, even if you don't take it out of the packaging, it deteriorates. What do you do with it? And I know there was a gentleman here that provided testimony, I guess from the CNMI, that sold fireworks, and he was asked how did he address disposal, and he didn't quite clearly answer that question during the public hearing of how do you address disposal of fireworks that maybe for whatever reason have expired and you can no longer use them. How do you safely address that? And so I wanted to ask, you know, the fire department, you mentioned that you're going to have rules and regulations in place to be reviewed. Is that issue being addressed on how do you address disposal and who's going to be responsible? I assume the person importing it is going to be responsible, but if they sell it out into the community and it's something, you know, average residents have, is this going to become part of their household hazardous waste, and who's going to pay for it, and how do we address the safety of that? If I can ask the Guam Fire Department representatives to perhaps elaborate on that issue.
Yes, Senator, that will be addressed, proper disposal as well. Just to mention, one of the requirements addressed by the federal government for all fireworks, especially if it's imported from a foreign country, a laboratory has to test random samples of the fireworks to ensure that the grade is appropriate, like if it's marked as a 1.4, that it's not really a 1.3. And there are certain banned materials that are not supposed to be in fireworks, and that's where the labs have to come into play. Those types of items will be incorporated into the rules and regulations. At this time, Chief Castro has assigned 2 captains to work on the rules and regulations. So,
Do we have facilities here to test for that on island?
no, we don't.
Okay, so how will we do that? I mean, we can put the requirement in place, but if there's no, I mean, you know, we're like the marijuana issue. If we don't have
Yes,
the lab,
that is correct.
how are we going to properly
And this is not
address
something that we're making up on our own. This is a federal requirement. And one of the things about living here on Guam is we don't have too many labs around that can test marijuana. What more fireworks? That'll be a whole new game changer for laboratories on Guam, but somebody's going to have to test it, whether we have to ship samples off island at the cost of the folks that are bringing it in. Obviously, fire department doesn't have the funding to conduct those tests or send anything to any specialized laboratories. Whenever we do find any types of substances that need to be tested in a criminal act, that's where we seek help with the federal agencies.
And more than likely, I'm assuming it has to be shipped. I don't think it's probably something they would allow to I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming, you know, they probably wouldn't allow it to be sent by plane to facilitate or expedite just for, again, safety reasons. It's something that's an explosive. So that's going to be an interesting issue moving forward if we don't have the labs here to test what's coming in. And we already see, you know, the challenges with addressing what's illegal coming into Guam. I mean, from drugs to hazardous pesticides that are not authorized to be used here, they still get into the island.
It's
and
one
that's
of
where the challenge is going to be, is
yes.
how do we catch it and how do we regulate it?
It's one of the challenges that we face. In addition, I know the topic was brought up on if we confiscate any items. Chief brought it up. If anything's confiscated, we don't have any storage facilities for placing confiscated items. That's a major challenge with all of our law enforcement agencies, is where do we place certain confiscated items. And I don't want to go too far out into left field, but we do have other items that are coming in that are like counterfeit, that contain lithium batteries that probably were not manufactured according to standards. So with technology and with everything that's emerging, you know, all these emerging trends and issues, we're faced with many challenges that we need to really address. We can add fireworks to that list.
Well, it sounds, I mean, I think we can all enjoy the, you know, like I said, I think we all enjoy fireworks. So who doesn't? It's something fun and something we look forward to. And I know the Author Center, San Nicolas, has, you know, really relayed himself. I'm sure he'll elaborate this afternoon, you know, as to why he's such an advocate for it. I don't think anyone argues that. I think it's the fact, are we prepared as a community to absorb the responsibility of maintaining, managing, and also the use and education and awareness, particularly young people. I remember we were kids, remember a little red strip with the dark maroon dots? We all used to take those things and throw rocks on them just to hear the pack sound. We don't know how we got them, but we got them. You know, little kids, we go around just to hear it. We were fascinated by that. I'm sure people of our generation are familiar with that. And hey, we didn't know any better. It was just something fun to play with. So it's getting that education and awareness, assuming we're able to do that. And then as you brought up, I wasn't even aware that this is something we may not have the capability of testing to ensure that there's safety, especially things coming in from Asia that, you know, might not meet the safety standards that we need. So that and the ability ultimately is how do we address proper disposal. So I look forward to when your regulations come forth and they come to us and we get to look at them, and hopefully maybe by then in a few months there's going to be more answers, because again, I mean, I understand the concern of the safety issue. How do we balance that? And, you know, things are a little backwards. We have this in place that the law allows for it, and yet we don't have the mechanism as to how we're going to manage, maintain, use, store, dispose of these fireworks. And these are things I assume that are things that the average person out there could have access to versus professionals that actually operate and are able to use fireworks. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions. I thank all of you for coming and providing your insight into this issue this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. At this time, I'd like to recognize Senator Perez if she has any comments or questions for this panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you know, when I read the bill, it states effective date, this act shall be effective immediately upon enactment. So there's nothing about it's effective upon promulgation of regulations. So I just want to be very clear about that. This bill legalizes it. regardless of whether regulations are in place. So having said that, I know your response was that you fall back on the federal laws if there's nothing available here. So how do you, I guess, resolve that conflict? You know, here we're saying it's legal, nothing about delayed enactment. You know, and I feel that, you know, when we had this discussion on the session floor, there was many attempts by my colleagues and myself to include safeguards. You know, safeguards that included, you know, limiting it to specific times of year, also limiting it to hours of the day, you know, definitely not during fire season. None of that is here to protect people and the environment. And so, and in addition to that, you know, the International Association of Fire Chiefs adopted the position that the importation, sale, and use of all consumer fireworks, including sparklers, at the local, state, and federal level should be banned, with the exception of professional public displays by licensed pyrotechnic operators. It goes on to say, the IAFC encourages fire service leaders to be assertive in their opposition to legislative attempts to legalize use of consumer fireworks by the public. And it says, it goes on to say, this was their revised position statement in 2022. It states that despite public perception, data proves that there are no safe and sane fireworks. Sparklers, firecrackers, Roman candles, novelties accounted for nearly 40% of the firework injuries treated in emergency room hospitals in 2020. And if I can go back to say, the IAFC encourages fire service leaders to be assertive in their opposition to legislative attempts to legalize the use of consumer fireworks by the public. The fire service should be actively engaged in the effort to educate federal, state, local legislators and federal regulators, thus ensuring that these legislators and regulators fully comprehend the implications of the actions they take and how they impact the safety of the public and the emergency responders in their own communities. They also go on to say they support changes to the Federal Hazardous Substance Act, which prohibits the importation, distribution, and sale of all fireworks to consumers. They support changes to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission rules that restricts the importation, distribution, and sale of all fireworks to consumers. Local, state, federal legislators are encouraged to adopt and preserve laws that restrict the availability of the sale of fireworks to consumers. So it goes on a list. So, you know, some of these things may be changing in the federal landscape. And, you know, would the Guam Fire Department then provide a statement aligning with the International Association of Fireworks? I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, what happened with considering this international, the national position.
Ma'am, I am the one that provided that statement that you just read. I did provide that. When you all first passed this bill, the original bill, we provided all the data. We provided these statements. We did provide these statements. However, if our elected bodies, yourselves, pass laws, pass bills, and sign into law by the governor, we have to use those laws and enforce them. Same with our counterparts in the Guam Police Department and all other law enforcers. We have to enforce the law, and we'll do our best to do that with what you all give us to do. We will give you the data. We will give you our stance, our position. With all of that, then you collectively make your decision. Whether we agree with it or not, we will enforce the law to the best of our abilities.
Okay, yeah, but the statement from the fire department is that they are neither in support nor opposition. That was the position statement. So even though the International Association of Fire Chiefs had that position statement, the Guam Fire Department did not. They fell short of that.
Thank you, ma'am.
And so that's the other things is that the other cabinet members provided testimony, basically opposing or, questioning this bill. We had the the forestry chief, regarding the hazards of, forest fires. And then, of course, Guam EPA provided their testimony concerning how to dispose of it. There's no infrastructure in place for it at this time. And I think that's why it's important that this bill, I supported this bill because, considering the discussion that happened on session floor, there was no attempts to allow for safety measures into the bill to be put in. There was a call of the question, which means they ended debate. They ended debate, prevented the inclusion of safety measures in the bill, by recommendations from agencies. And I think, Mr. Sanchez, thank you for your testimony. The safety of our community is paramount. This bill legalizes it, period. And I think, we're leaving ourselves open to harm that could come. And so, and it doesn't stop with the permitting, Guam Fire Department is tasked with developing these regulations. But there's other agencies that need to be involved. Have the Guam Fire Department reached out to those agencies? And if so, which agencies have you reached out to?
We currently cooperate with all the regulatory agencies. If anybody was to set up a business, they would have to go to the proper business procedures, land management, revenue tax, Department of Public Works. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it will be Department of Public Works that will issue the occupancy permit for where they're going to store it, where they would be allowed to sell it. Land management will determine where they would be allowed to operate that particular type of business. Now, the fire department, we would run the operations permit aspect of any type of permitting operation. So that's where we come in. Yes, we are a major player, but before it gets to us, it has to go through the proper procedures like any other business. For the same token, just like if somebody was going to be, like, let's say, Smith Bridge, Hawaiian Rock, or any other rock company that would be mining coral or limestone, and they'll be blasting, it's a very similar type of permit, just like what Mr. Sanchez here has to go through. So we do have in place legal requirements for storage, handling, transportation of fireworks. We just don't have a unique, tailored rules and regulations for our community here on Guam. But we do have in place the International Fire Code that regulates all these things of interest in terms of, again, storage, transportation, and handling. Coming into Guam, into our borders, customs and quarantine have to control that before it even comes in. So if they don't have any permit to store it anywhere on Guam when it comes into the port, it would be held at the Port Authority. If there's no permits for where it will be properly stored, they would either have to take it and have it shipped back to where it came from, or they would have to figure out how to have it disposed of properly here on island. There are other agencies that will come in if they violate the type and grade of explosives that are coming in. If it's supposed to be a 1.4, which is consumer grade, and it's actually a 1.3, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms would come in and do their role as federal regulatory agencies.
Yeah, so the other thing, Guam EPA, of course, is another one. During your rulemaking, have you engaged these agencies?
Not yet, ma'am. We need to produce our draft. They're all aware that, everybody's aware that they're waiting on the rules and regulations, so.
Okay, that's concerning because they should be at the front end of it. But, regarding to, I recall during the public hearing for this bill, there was one gentleman that was in favor of it. And when asked, what does he do with, I guess, unusable fireworks, he said he throws it down the drain. And so I can't fathom, we have capacity issues with, our agencies. How can we ensure that all these users are going to be properly disposing of this. And you know, that again points to the importance of this bill. We're not ready for it. We don't have the safeguards in place. And in fact, the International Association of Fire Chiefs is pushing for even stronger protections. And so at this point, if there is a movement, yeah, they promote the, they want stronger measures. And so I think, we really need to look at protecting the community. It should be first and foremost.
We agree, ma'am. We need to protect our community.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Perez. At this time, I'd like to recognize Senator Kanatsa if you have any questions or comments. Okay. I just have a few questions. I understand in the, because, I was part of the CCB, and I recognize that there's a lot of legal work that goes into a crafting of rules and regs. I understand that the Attorney General, because you wrote a letter, your department wrote a letter about a week and a half ago that the Attorney General has withdrawn legal services for the Guam Fire Department. Is that affecting your ability to write the rules and regs at all for the fireworks and the updates and whatnot?
That has no effect on with us at this time.
No effect at this time. All right, thank you. And so I think about when I was growing up. As a Filipino American, I have a love of fireworks from both sides of my culture. As an American, we sing about the rocket's red glare. Hey, I sang about that rocket's red glare very badly once in this very hall. And in the Philippines, I remember as young as 6 years old going out there with a little lighter, blowing up stuff at midnight. And so, I've always had very fond memories of fireworks. And my father used to say to me, because my mom hated when I blew up the fireworks, as any good mom should. And he said to me, well, I tell you what, son, you do everything your mother tells you, and you'll be perfectly safe and bored, and nothing good or bad will ever happen to you. And I always remembered that as a man who had a young, adventurous appetite, I loved fireworks. I loved drinking beers. I loved smoking cigars. I loved shooting guns. I love skiing down a mountain with skates on. I love doing a lot of things that probably in the grand scheme of things shorten my lifespan, and that's probably why men die younger ages than women, right? But what I find is that there's a richness to life that we lose when we start to try and control people's freedoms. Now, I believe in the democratic dialect. I've always believed that ideas that aren't challenged grow weak. And same it is with this fireworks bill. I welcome all public challenges to all the laws, and as a committee chair, I will never sit on your bills and let them die in committee. That's not how I operate. I believe that if there is a public debate to be had, we should have it. So I use this public hearing to reaffirm my support for legalized fireworks on Guam. Because these gentlemen are right. We talk about the lack of facilities and the lack of equipment while we're legalizing fireworks. However, that is a policy choice for us to make. My brothers and sisters, I tell you, freedom and fireworks are not the enemy. Our lack of infrastructure and our lack of preparation, that is the enemy. Rather than cowing away from freedom, we should embrace freedom and meet the challenges that come with it head on. There is a technocratic discussion and a general direction discussion about this topic. Now, what is clear to me from that discussion is that on the technocratic end, there is a lot to be said, there's a lot to be improved, there are rules and regulations that need to be done, there are fees and schedules that need to be updated. There is a generational reorganization due for the Guam Fire Department. We have just received the census, we've seen the changing demands on our population. And so rather than wrap ourselves in bubble wrap where nothing good or bad can happen to us, I say we embrace the freedom and we make sure that we can pay the price of freedom. And the price of freedom is having the infrastructure and the services to combat the natural effects of what this freedom will come to us. And so, with that, I will say that in this discussion, I would like to reiterate to the fire department that as your committee chair, I support the direction completely of legalized fireworks, as well as whatever necessary infrastructure or budget changes need to be done for you to meet those challenges. To my people of Guam, there are still things that need to be done before all of these things are done in a row, but they are getting done, and we will make sure that they are as safe, as sane as possible, while making sure we have the infrastructure, equipment, and expertise to meet those challenges. I lived in the stateside for very, very many years, and for me, July was something as a firefighter we just always prepared for. That was part and parcel of our season. We knew that after 4th of July weekend, we were going to be busy, and we did not shy away from that challenge. Heck, we took part of that. We were part of the 4th of July, having barbecues, spending time with our families, embracing the glue that holds our society together, food, drink, and merriment. Those are the things that build cultures, that tighten the bonds of family. And just because we are not in the place to absorb those needs now, as we're developing these rules, we should make sure that we strengthen our institutions so that they can handle that. So I would like to use this public hearing as a way to offer my commitment to the fire department that this is the direction your committee chair wants to go in, and this is the direction we will support so that you can meet your mission. And with that, I would like to open up the floor to Senator San Nicolas for any questions or comments at this time. And then I will pass it on to Senator Taitigui to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So because of me that we're all here. I just had a little dream when I was a child. I wanted, ever since I've done this, my motives have been questioned. My integrity, my honor, my good deeds have been, put out there and been questioned. So, my team and I had a wonderful trip to Saipan because we wanted to know how it is that they're doing things up there. And, we visited the supplier, and he had a storage facility. We practically went at every retail store, and just walking in, you can pick it up, and just carry it out. I think at one place we bought some fireworks, and everybody gathered around, all the locals, and they said, "Hey, where are you guys gonna blow this off? And can we come down?" And so we ended up going to the beach, and it was a wonderful time. There was kids there, and I think it was like 10 years old, and he came up to me after. We all shared with the fireworks, and of course we were there and we gave adult supervision. And he said, this is a wonderful night of my life. And I'll never forget that. And it's something that I've had when I was a child too, the ability to play with fireworks. And I just wanted to say about Senator Joanne Brown, because I did the same thing with the rocks and that little strip of paper, because the gun that it actually came with broke. So I was just like you. We were hitting it with a rock. Yes. And so I had a career fair a couple weeks ago, and I was explaining to them, because they were asking us our policies and stuff that we put in place, and they asked me about fireworks, and they also asked me about the hospital, but they asked me about fireworks. And I told them, I said, I was explaining to them how wonderful it is, how wonderful it was to play with fireworks, and the supervision my dad gave me, and the whole experience. And they looked at me with strange eyes. They never experienced this on Guam. And there was times in my life when I was a child, you know, going down to the Liberation Day Carnival and then running over to Acme to get your consumer grade fireworks. But I want to also mention that there's a distinction between consumer grade fireworks and display fireworks. Because everybody here, especially the opposition, might always mentioning fireworks. 1.3 and 1.4, there's a distinction between the two. Federal government has come in and understood the differences between the two. Most states in the, most of the states in the union, you know, have some legalized form of it. And there's one more thing I wanted to mention about the labels, Chief. I think labeling and laboratory research is done at the manufacturing level. And before shipping, it all has all the labels before. It's not the end retailer to do the laboratory testing, but at the manufacturing level. I don't know if you heard that or you understand that part? Or?
Yes, sir. We do understand that. Yeah. However, if there's any type of fireworks that are questionable, right, that may be counterfeit, yes, you know, and may have counterfeit tags, right, we would have to randomly check those out.
Yes, sir. Yes, I agree with that. You know, several years ago, I just wanted to share with this, and Facebook just reminded me of my memories 8 years ago, and this is what I posted while I was still a customs officer. Legalized consumer-grade fireworks in time to celebrate the 4th of July and Liberation Day. This is way before I became a school counselor. This is way before I started my business. This is way before I ran for office. I've always advocated for the safe use of consumer-grade fireworks. I've always advocated, you know, not to use firearms as a means to celebrate. So that's why we're here. And I'd like to thank the panel for being here. Chief Bordallo, sir, and Mr. Sanchez, you all do wonderful work for our communities, you know, especially at the business aspect, and I really appreciate that, sir. I really do. My goal here is not to deter, is not to hamper the making the law more safe. What I'm against is outright making it illegal for our community. I actually spoke to, you know, some legislators in Saipan. I actually had because I didn't, it's been a long time since I played with fireworks. I went to the beach and guess who was there? The Speaker of the House of Representatives. And I asked him, I said, sir, can you help me out? And actually he was the first one that threw out and we had a great time. But I asked him, I said, have you had any problems with this over the years? He goes, yes, we had concerns, but we didn't make it illegal. What we did was we kept modifying the law to suit our safety needs. And so I don't encourage the outright destruction of the bill, the law that I put out. But what I do, though, would like is to make it better. I've never been, and I've never came out in opposition to that. I actually do want to help make it better. I want to make it safe. You know, the last thing I want to do is do something that hurts the community. But I do want to allow it and make it safe for everybody. And I'd like to thank you again for being here. And hopefully we can work together toward making the law more safer. And I'm waiting for the rules and regulations. I think everybody else is too. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much for your comments and questions, Senator San Nicolas. At this time, I would now like to welcome the prime sponsor and opportunity to close. Senator Tiedegree, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that testimony or comments that you said earlier about our freedoms. You know, I too enjoy that, and that's a Republican comment, actually, that we allow our freedoms and let the government stay out of our business. However, there's safety in that too. You mentioned putting out rules and regulations to keep our community safe, fees and fines that need to be implemented. And that was the problem with the public law that passed. It didn't have that in there. And it was stated earlier by my good colleague, Senator Paris, that there was nothing in that public law that says it has to be, rules and regulations have to pass. And that's what I was trying to make my point earlier. And the Attorney General will tell you there's nothing in there that says it will make it legal once the rules and regs pass. Doesn't say it. And that's clear. And that's what I mean about the cart before the horse. We sit up here and talk about how we want the wonderful things in our community to celebrate with, but yet we're passing legislation. I apologize to the people of Guam. Unfortunately, there's certain people in this legislature who rather give favors to people than do what's right and make it safe for our island. They forget why they were elected into this office. It's unfortunate. And even my colleague mentioned about all the amendments that we tried to proffer. Even though we both don't want to legalize fireworks, we see there's more harm into our community, our small island that is 4.5% that is burning. And most of that is from self-ignition by people. But one of the amendments that I tried to get through was an amendment that no sitting senator shall sell fireworks, because it was mentioned how lucrative it is. No sitting senator shall sell it. And when I got ridiculed for it, the author of the legislation stood up and never admitted he would not sell it. When asked, I didn't think about not selling it. And that is disingenuous to you sitting there and to the people of Guam. What's the real intention for that bill to pass? To line somebody's pockets, sitting on this doggone table here. And I don't care who it is, I will call them out. And I think the people of Guam have called them out. So sitting here today, I'm just disappointed. I know the fire department doesn't support this. I know, Fred Berdalu, you do not support the legalization of fireworks. But you have to say what you have to say. Because where you're sitting at right now. That's hard to sleep at night, isn't it? I do have one last question to the fire department. What happens if GFD puts out a no open burning warning? No open burning, what you do during dry season. Will that apply to fireworks?
Can you restructure that sentence?
Okay, so you know how fire department puts out a no burning warning to the public? There shall be no burning, open burning. Will that apply to fireworks?
Yes, ma'am. If there's a hazard and we find that that'll add to the hazard, like if it's too windy and dry, and the climate would be more dangerous if there's any open flames, of course that will apply.
Let's make sure that it goes into the rules and regs. Because right now, we're going into dry season. We've been having several fires, and people can fire out fireworks right now. There's nothing in there, nothing legal about it, because doggone it, this body passed a bill, had nothing to do with the freedoms that we are given in this country, but it has to do with putting rules and regulations to protect our community.
Ma'am, I just want to clarify that our fire code does have language in it that if the fire marshal or the fire chief finds a situation or condition that is detrimental and would put the public at harm, we can make decisions to protect the community. So the situation,
even by law, even if it's in law. So it counteracts Guam law, Guam Code annotated.
if it's in the spirit of the code to protect the community, we will take whatever actions we have to
I think you need to check out the Attorney General to get the clear understanding of what you are allowed and not allowed to do, or can arrest or prosecute, because there were comments made earlier too that you said legal without rules because they use national standards. GFD is saying it's legal without rules because they use national standards.
Who said that?
No, it doesn't matter who said it. It's just a comment that was made, you made earlier today. So
The comment that I made, that in the absence of a code or provision, a nationally recognized standard could be used.
could be used, so it could
We can
Makes
use it until we have a
unlegal or
standard,
legal. And that's the confusion about it
a
because it's,
nationally recognized standard.
yeah, but here's the problem. It is legal. There's a Guam Code annotated, a law that was passed.
In the absence of
Yeah.
a provision, if you do have
Right,
a
but-
standard or a law, and there's a gap somewhere.
understand, I
We
understand,
can use
Chief.
a nationally recognized provision.
Right, but
And
unfortunately.
we have done that before.
Right, but unfortunately, it is legal, fireworks, and it's unfortunate. I already read, Mr. Chair, the concerns I have. I mean, it's actually proven since that bill passed, people have been hurt, and I don't think it's going to stop there. And guess what? There are no rules and regulations in place right now. It's cart before the horse. It's very unbecoming of any senator to vote yes on that bill. And people are seeing it. Again, so frustrated. Mr. Sanchez, I was going to do another closing, but I want to leave my closing to allow you to say a couple comments on your assessment of what was made out earlier, if you could please, and then I'll end it.
Thank you for that. I actually had just a few simple ideas, and I think the whole cart before the horse analogy is probably the best. I think if there's a way, because according to Honorable Joe San Augustine, it can be undone. I think if there's a way to put the horse before the cart, correct this so that way the rules and regulations are in place before we do legalize, because I just think, I'm not trying to say take away the freedoms and try to take away the fun. I make it a life commitment. I risk my life so people can have fun watching fireworks. However, I think passing it without these things in place is reckless. And I think that's how it's been labeled too. The whole passage of this legalization without the steps is what happened there? What are we thinking? What's the rush? Why don't we do this correctly? Look at those steps, make sure they're correct, make sure everybody's safe, and then say, okay, it's legal now. What we did is we said, it's legal, let's figure it out. So, and I agree with Senator Tello that, if somebody were to light it on the street, what's the law? You can't stop them, because basically we're saying you can't buy it or you can't sell it, but you can shoot it off, it's legal. And I get calls all the time. I get people asking me, can I buy this from you? Can I try this? And, I simply say, no, it's not. Even the news reports that come out, for example, when it first became legal, there was a photo of one of my big fireworks on there saying Guam fireworks. So deceiving, so, miscommunication that people think that, oh, big fireworks are legal now. They don't understand that the whole idea behind this is to legalize sparklers and maybe packs. I get that, and that's fine. But because there's so much confusion, so much miscommunication, and, we legalized this before putting the procedures down, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. And I that would be my recommendation, Chair, on this thing. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And for somebody who's been in the business for a long time, who truly has that spirit of, in having entertainment in a safe way, and then even putting your business, not selling it to anybody, any fireworks, even if it becomes legal. That's very commendable, and it speaks well about how your intentions are about our public and keeping them safe. So I appreciate it. Fire department, I've always been your greatest hero. You've always been my greatest hero, and I will always advocate for you, and especially the safety and welfare of your firefighters out there. And yes, Senator Brown did mention that my son is a firefighter.
And he's what, 6'7"?
He's 6'8".
He's 6'8". He's 6 feet 8 inches tall. He's a very big firefighter.
My son is also a firefighter.
Yes.
In the States.
Yes, mine is in Arizona. Where's yours, Chief? What state?
Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah, so it's important, you know, I mean, we encourage them and they look to us to make sure that we're passing laws that are good laws, not just protecting the environment, but our community. So I appreciate that. And of course, Mr. Badayo, Chief Badayo, all those hats that you wear, I know your incentive, and I think people see it right through you that you're the concern that you have. Yeah. So that, Mr. Chair, I'm holding it to you now. If you think that the cart before the horse happened here, then maybe we can create legislation. If it's not to repeal, at least to have legislation that says fireworks will not be legal until rules and regulations are put in place. It's as simple as that. Let's work on something like that together for the safety and welfare of our community. Thank you, everyone, and please be safe out there.
Thank you, Senator Titagui. Before we go, I just wanted to say to GFD, congratulations on your Fire Week. I know you guys are having festivities all week. I was actually able to take part, join your little 3v3 basketball tournament. I was Team Parkinson, oversight chair of rebounds that day, and so we went 1-1, and I just wanted to say for all the Guam public, they have given me all the confidence in the world that their PT program is doing great, because they ran me under the table.
And just to let everybody know, sir, that it's actually not just Fire Recognition Week. It's the 39th birthday of the Guam Fire Department. March 13th was the day that Guam Fire Department and separated from Department of Public Safety. So technically, it's also GPD's birthday, too, where we both became our own entities, our own agencies.
Hear, hear. Bravo. Bravo. So from there on, if there are no further questions or comments, this concludes our discussion on Bill number 202-37 COR. My office will continue to accept written testimony on today's hearing within 5 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 905 of the DNA building in Agatna. You may also send your written testimony to my office via email, senatorparkinson@guamlegislature.org. Thank you for your participation. Bill 202-37 is now duly heard. This public hearing is adjourned, and the time is now 3:59. Thank you.